What's up, everybody? How we doing? Happy, what is it? Monday. Happy Monday. Ugh, start of the week. Only a couple weeks left till school starts, and then I got to go back to work. Oh, why did I remind myself of that? Anyways, just wanted to come on here. I'm usually going to do comic book stuff, but this is a comic book movie, and it's a movie about my favorite superhero or arguably favorite character in all of any medium whatsoever. So I wanted to come on and talk about it. This isn't going to be your normal kind of review where I'm going to go through all the buzzwords that you see everybody else go through that I would love to see their definition of what those terms they use actually mean. There's my shot of the day. Boom. But I just want to talk to you about how this movie made me feel. Because I think we go to the movies to feel something. We go see a play to feel something. We read books and we play video games and we consume stories to feel something, to learn something, to not only learn something about whatever it is maybe that you're watching, but to learn something about yourself and to feel something about yourself and to go on a journey with a character that you relate to in some way and some form. And there's no more relatable character to me in my life than Spider-Man, than Peter Parker, more specifically. Let me get out my notes because I wrote a bunch of nice notes. I saw this opening night at 11:20 because that was the only time that I could go see it because everything else was booked. And then I just saw it again this last Wednesday with my beautiful better half, who also loved it. But we'll get into her thoughts in a little bit later. But anyways, like I said, we go to the movies to feel. And I think sometimes, especially in these superhero films and the folks that have the loud voices and have the YouTubes and all that, go into a movie getting caught up in trying to decide whether it's good or not, whether like all the, like I said, the cool buzzwords. Was the writing good? Was the cinematography good? Was the character development good? Was the directing good? Was the style of camera that they used that I don't understand the name of, was that good? Nothing personal. That's just because those things matter, but that's just not how I consume this stuff, and that's not why I go to the movies. Like I said, I go to the movies to feel, and I hope that a lot of you do as well, because this movie does a great job of making you feel a bunch of different things, and I think it does a great job of doing those things. So but that's how I want to talk about this movie. So because, like I said, Spider-Man means so much to me. He's been the most relatable character to me since I was like a little kid, and growing up reading him, and as I definitely got into middle school and high school, and uh, started having some of the same girl problems and issues balancing things. I was an athlete and did choir and did all these extracurricular activities and still had to have relationships with people and have do my schoolwork and balance all of that. And so being able to see somebody my age dealing with the same things, but also you throw in that dressing of him being a superhero and going and fighting crime instead of playing on his high school football team or something, is just was a recipe for success for me. And there hasn't been a character that I have related to so much. There's definitely lots of characters that I can think of in my head that I looked up to as a kid or that I related to. But like I think of Luke Skywalker or Goku, those types of characters were definitely in my top, echelon of people that I looked up to growing up. Imaginary people, I guess, growing up. But none of them didn't and will never top Peter Parker for me. And so, where am I at? Yeah, I grew up with him. And out of the hundreds of thousands of superheroes, like I said, there's no more relatable superhero for me than Peter Parker. He felt like I said, like a peer. Like I saw so much of myself in this character. And I think that's a lot of people. Hopefully you're nodding your head while I'm saying that. Because I think that's what makes him the most popular and best superhero ever, because of how relatable he is. And we'll get into that with this movie because I think they did a great job making him extremely relatable as well. But as I got older, something along the lines a little bit changed for me. They cast Tom Holland, who was a younger actor than I was, and they were going to delve into the high school era and kind of go way younger with Peter Parker. And I was a little bit older. And so I watched these movies rooting for him, and I thoroughly enjoyed all three of the movies. The second one, not as much as the first one and the third one, but still, I was rooting for Pete, but I was rooting for him like as an older brother, and looked at him as maybe a character that I had outgrown in a certain aspect, um, which was totally fine. But then I went and saw this movie, and that connection came back. And I don't know, not to get into too much detail, but for that connection to come back in a movie where it's focusing on his isolation and loneliness and how he's dealing with loss, is definitely a little bit TMI to get into when it comes to me relating to him a lot in this movie. But I think that's why this movie is doing so well, is that he is so relatable in this film. But let's get into my thoughts on things. Okay, so there's my little intro, a little bit of tease. I'll talk about some of those things a little bit more in depth as we get into it here. But I just kind of wanted to talk about kind of where my journey through this film and my feelings throughout. And then I'll get into the acting and some of the other story things and the cinematography and the character development and the tone. And I'll use all those buzzwords for you for sure, so it gets in the algorithm. But anyway, so for the first 30 minutes, I was just sitting in the theater thinking, man, this feels great. From the opening scene, we are seeing the MCU through the lens of Peter Parker. And there are heroes, there's villains, there's all this stuff happening around him, but it never feels like a cameo fest. And I get the intro with just a little like Tombstone and those. Yes, those are cameos. But it had felt like we were watching a montage of Pete, what Pete was up to over these last 4 years since we last saw him. But the world felt lived in, and it felt like this is Peter's neighborhood. This is New York City. The people exist, whether Spider-Man, we're watching a Spider-Man movie or not. This world felt extremely lived in. And I thought they did a wonderful job of that, because I think that's something that MCU movies have been struggling with, is they just kind of assume that we're good with however they set up their set of circumstances and all of their films and how the world looks and how everything is. And it really came across in some of our other movies as very cookie cutter, very clean, very like, if we walked inside, we'd start filming this like a sitcom kind of vibe. And this movie didn't feel that way. This felt the exact opposite of that. And I don't know whether they heard the criticisms or not, and wanted to really focus on that. But I thought this felt really great and lived in, and it felt like the real world, and not felt like I was reading somebody's just really beautiful, clean, nice, no chances taken art in a bland comic book. I digress. So like for the first, I guess maybe not 30 minutes. I don't know when this moment happens, because for me, when a movie's good for me, I just kind of lose track of time, and I don't know, the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, last 30, whatever. I just try to guesstimate. So all of that felt really great, and all the given circumstances they gave us in the first half of this film were great. Side note, I think this movie does a great job of retroactively making No Way Home a better film with how they deal with the fallout of what happens in that film. But I digress. But I don't digress. That's a great segue, baby. Boom shakalaka. Great segue. Because up until this moment, like I said, okay, this is great. This is a good, semi-street level Spider-Man story. And I'm digging it. But we get to this moment here where I think for me is where I locked in for for the rest of this film. I didn't care about any of the buzzwords. I didn't care about anything else, anybody else's story, because from this moment on, all I cared about was whether Peter Parker was good or not. And I was going to go on the journey with him until he was good or not. So those of you that's seen this film, Pete and his friends, his friends don't remember him anymore. And so he's kind of like following them from afar on social media and stuff. And so he finally kind of works up the courage to go to a housewarming party for Ned and MJ's new apartment and all that stuff. And he shows up, has an interaction with them, and you can just feel the nervousness in him in the scenes. and you can feel that, or in the scene, I should say, and you just feel like, oh, are they going to recognize me? And that just, you just feel a little bit. He plays it like very low key, but you can feel that underneath. And we'll get into that with the performances, but that's something I think Tom Holland does such an amazing job in this film. He definitely projects one way to everybody, or to a lot of people in this movie. But you can feel underneath all of the sadness and the depression and the sadness. And I thought he did such a great job with that. But anyways, again, I digress. The moment I'm talking about, though, is when Peter sees MJ kiss her new boyfriend for the first time. And it's so hard for me to say that. I effing hated him. And if his name was Paul, rotten hell, dude. Rotten hell, Ezra Bridger. That's the guy who plays him. I don't know if anybody here's watched Ahsoka, but the guy who plays Ezra in Ahsoka played her boyfriend. And you see the moment happen. You see them kiss, and then you see Peter. And, because we've all been there. Whether you're a guy or a girl or whatever you are, we've all loved somebody at some point. We've all had a crush on somebody at some point, and we've seen them with somebody else. And to see them be intimate and to be happy with somebody else when you're feeling those feelings is one of the worst feelings you can feel as a human being. It was the worst. And then he goes and he swings in the rain and he just drops. And I felt this in my head. I said this to myself, to Peter on the screen. I'm with you, bro. I've been there, bro. I get it. I don't care what else happens in this movie. I don't care what other people do. I don't care how it looks. I don't care who does anything other than if you're okay. And I'm going to go on this journey, no matter what else happens in this movie, to make sure that by the end of this thing, Pete's okay. And I got myself. For a long time, I didn't feel that. And I felt that so much growing up. And like I said earlier, when I connected with this character, and to feel that again was such a wonderful experience for me personally. I'm not forcing anybody and saying you needed to feel the same thing I felt here, but it felt wonderful. I guess it's ironic that it's such a sad moment that I started feeling this way and then was in it for the rest of the film. But like it felt so good to connect with my favorite character again. You know, it felt good connecting with my favorite character again. I have no idea what my phone just did there. And so I was, like I said, I was locked in, and I talked way past my notes. So hold on, give me a second. Yeah, that's a great way to segue here. So let's get into the acting. So like I just said, like Tom Holland had to balance two really different things here in this film. And for those of you that don't act, it is really, really difficult to act in anything. Okay. It is really difficult to, like when you're shooting film, there's a whole different set of difficulties than doing theater. In theater, you have to have everything memorized and go on the journey in front of an audience of people that you probably don't know at all, and make sure that you know every single thing on the spot and you can't screw up. If you screw up, you got to be able to pivot really quickly and you got to be able to think on your feet. In a film, sometimes you'll shoot chronologically, sometimes you'll shoot all over the place. Either way, it's really, really difficult to maintain everything that you're doing, right? It's a hard thing to balance. So when your character is portraying one thing to everybody in public, like you're a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man who comes across as the guy who is at your job, who everybody loves because he's great at his job, he's nice to everybody, he helps everybody, and like is a really great person who has great conversations with everybody and is really positive. And then to go home and be miserable and be sad and have to play that underneath this really happy-go-lucky guy is really difficult. And a tough thing to balance, and you can fall into all the acting traps possible when balancing something like that. And he didn't do that. He was so good at playing the subtleness. You know, something they teach us in acting school. Communication is 90% physical, 10% verbal. And his physicality and how he communicated, how he felt physically throughout this film was as good as he's ever been, man. And I don't want to hear anybody talk crap about him. Nothing personal to you. You could never do what he does in this film from a performance standpoint. And so you have to tip your cap. By the way, yeah, I got a haircut, acting, film, shooting. You got to tip your cap to him for being able to accomplish that. Now, whether you didn't like that or not and didn't like his performance, that's on you. Personally, feel like some of the reviews that I've seen and some of the people that have spoke negatively about his performance definitely are going in with preconceived notions and saw a different film than I saw. But do you, boo-boo? Not my monkey, not my circus. I know how this movie made me feel and how I enjoyed it. Anyways, this is the most comfortable that I've seen Tom Holland in this character, which after what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 performances. He understands Pete. And to hear him that he plays the video game and he reads the books and he's really consumed a lot of Spider-Man media, shows that he really loves and cares about this character. And I think that speaks volumes in this film. I think the way that he portrays Pete is top notch. I think the way that he interacts in the world and how he interacts with all the different characters is beautiful. And I'll get into more of that toward the end here, because there's a big point I want to make about that. But what am I saying? Oh, blah, 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 comfortable. I've seen him in the middle. I don't mean, yeah, sorry. And I don't mean that Peter is comfortable in this movie, because Peter is miserable in this film. But I mean that Tom was comfortable enough with this character that he didn't feel the need to show every single emotion that Pete was going through. Like, he didn't mean to overact. And as an actor, I appreciate that, because overacting is one of the biggest traps that an actor can get into, because you think that it will help the audience understand what you are going through and what you are feeling, right, in those moments. And it doesn't work that way. And then sometimes you can go the opposite way, and then you come across as a wooden board, like this deep. And in some cases that can be even worse. But there's this sweet spot, like right in the middle, man. The porridge isn't too hot. It isn't too cold. The porridge is just right, dude, for Goldilocks, dude. And if you can consistently live in that area and you can consistently be able to tap into that, man, you are going to be a very, very rich actor. I'll tell you that. Because there's this acting idea I learned in acting school that actors on a stage or on film, are always trying to cry. But people in a place going through something are trying not to cry a vast majority of the time. Yeah, sometimes you just have to let it out and understand that. But a vast majority of the time, especially in the situation Pete gets into here, where those things come up, definitely trying not to cry. And I thought he did such a beautiful job of trying to hold that back, because then we as an audience, at least for me and for the people that were surrounding me in the theater, are now holding those tears back as well, because you've got us. We're following you on the journey. And he did such an amazing job of doing that. And I don't understand where people get that he sucks. I really think you're just being a hater, and that's fine. It is what it is. Nothing personal to you. But like I said, does such a great job of balancing the quippy, not happy-go-lucky, but outgoing Spider-Man, who then goes home and is absolutely miserable and is dealing with the loss of his aunt still, and dealing with the loss of the 2 people that are alive still that he has no relationship with because of fooby-dooby magical comic book stuff. Like, that would be the worst thing ever. There's nothing you can do about it. You feel so helpless. Ugh. And they did such a good job of conveying that, because yes, that's such a silly concept that like a wizard, a sorcerer made the spell where nobody's going to remember you ever, period, the end. And like, that's such a ridiculous set of circumstances to give you to start this film. And they do such a great job of taking those circumstances and playing them out in the way that they did. And the writing definitely has something to do with that. But you can have great writing with mid performances. And these were wonderful performances and totally enriched the writing, especially the main 3. And I'll get to those 2 in a second, but I just want to finish this stuff with Tom. His expressions and his acting with his eyes were, how do I say this? I can't explain to you how difficult that is. Like, I can't explain to you. And those of you that aren't actors and haven't ever done it before, like, you just don't understand. And it's nothing personal, no disrespect, but it's just really, really difficult. And if you go watch him in the first 3 films, he does a lot of overacting. He does a lot of like, look at me, try and look at me, because that's kind of where his character is at, where he's trying to impress Avengers, or he's trying to impress MJ, and he's trying to kind of like get people to notice him in a way without giving away that he's Spider-Man, which is brilliant, and they do a great job of it. But he falls into the traps of overacting a little bit, and it got better in Far or No Way Home, but in this he is so good. Like when MJ, spoiler alert, duh, but when MJ tells him that, she reads the letter and she tells him, like, I don't love you, I don't know you, like, thank you for doing what you did and protecting me, but I don't remember that, so like whoever she was, that's not me. And he has to stand there and take that after he just like thinks that he's defeated the villain, and he just had to fight the Hulk and like go through all this shit. Sorry for the kids watching, but this shit emotionally and physically and all of this stuff, and then comes back to like pick her up and tell her like, hey, everything's good, we're good now. And she's got the letter. Like, oh, you left out the letter, dude. Oh, you're so screwed now, bro. And like, this has nothing to do with it, but like, I don't know, a couple months ago, went to Target, bought a fig, dude. Didn't tell the missus. I just bought it for myself, which is not a big deal. But, like I had said, maybe I was going to cut back. Got home when she wasn't home, got him set up, didn't think about it, stopped thinking about it. Dude, I left the receipt out, dude. And then I come like walking in from something, and she's looking at the receipt, and I went, oh, no. So you went and got a fig, huh? No! Now, this is completely different than that, but, that's where my mind went like, oh, dude, you left the letter out. No! Oh, but then she has this Zendaya, and I'll just go right into Zendaya. Woo-hoo! She killed it in this movie. She was phenomenal. This is the MJ that I have been waiting for. I was absolutely just enthralled every time she was on the screen. She was great. She's on a roll, dude. Her acting is in such a great place. She's in such a beautiful place as an actress and as an artist. I love her. No notes. But when she is giving this whole speech, and he has to sit there, and it's just in his eyes, man, and he's standing there, and he's trying to keep cool, and he's trying to like compose himself and keep his composure, but you can just see it all just ripping away. And he's just like, dang, dude. And it wrecked me, dude. It wrecked me. It really did. Because previously we have the moment where they get on the roof, and MJ says, I remember, and I do all this stuff, and then you realize it's just Jean Grey messing with her mind. And oh, that was killer, man. That was killer, dude. So you have the kiss, then you have that where they just tease you, they dig out they throw out the carrot to you a little bit, and then they do this to just just to stab your heart into just nothingness, dude. And like I said, I was with Pete though. So I said I'm on this journey. So I can't back down now. So I was just a wreck, man. Just a wreck. And I was a wreck the second time I saw it. I thought, oh, maybe I'll I know it's coming. I'm good. Nope. I was in it again. Just done for. But also Zendaya's performance, like I said, phenomenal. And so both of them together and their chemistry together and how they acted with each other was so good. Like, look how good these two actors are when they don't have to pretend to be teenagers and get to just be real people dealing with real issues, I guess, under really crazy superhero-y comic book circumstances. But still, like, they are so good. And I'm so excited to see that grow and continue in these next films of Spider-Man that we're going to see, and to see them build off of this and all of that. And we'll get into some of the spoilery stuff here toward the latter half, but I just thought that their performances were amazing. And I can't leave out the third amigo of the trio, but Ned was the most human that he has been also in all of these Spider-Man films, and any cameo that he's made. This was a real human person. This wasn't just a comedic for laughs character that just says the funny stuff and is the guy in the chair. Like, no, this was a full fleshed out human. And I think he had more real moments in this movie than I think in the entirety of the other three films that he is in. So shout outs to Ned too, dude. Because like, it was just great. And when they were playing doing the Legos together and reciting the Lord of the Rings quotes to each other. Just beautiful. Absolutely beautimous. John Bernthal, I'll get into the other characters real quick because I don't want to like bog down with it all. But John Bernthal, phenomenal. I'm a Frank Castle fan. I don't know if you can see, they're right there. I have pretty much every Punisher omnibus that exists. So I've read pretty much every Punisher thing that you can read that's in a hardcover collected format. Okay, so I know my Punisher. And one of the things I always root for every time I read a Punisher book is I just want Frank to be okay, man. Can I have Frank have some moment of relief and happiness for him? Because we're just going from killing one thing to the next, and we're reliving our family's death over and over and over again, and it's just so sad. And so for him just to be able to, like, through meeting and having a relationship with Peter Parker and Spider-Man, well, I guess not Peter Parker, but it's with Spider-Man, allows him to have that. And the end when they're in the hospital is my favorite scene of the whole film, because it is just it was such a beautiful scene, and it gives Frank that moment to just like be a real person for once and not this killing machine, and to allow Peter to like have his mask off and be able to open up to somebody, and all those, of all people, for that to be Frank Castle, and for them to share this real moment where like they're laughing and they're connecting with each other, and for Frank to have connection with somebody and for Peter to get connection with somebody after what we see him go through in this film. How can you hate that? How can you hate that? I don't understand. And that's okay. Everyone has the right to their own opinion, but for me, that was it's my favorite. Like I said, my favorite scene of the whole film, and I absolutely loved John Bernthal throughout this whole thing. Like the brother energy, hey, you're not going to want to try that chili, like just awesome. Before I get to Hulk, Yelena Belova, big potatoes. Again, don't understand the complaints. One of the things I love about this movie and what they do great with Spider-Man is in these first three movies, like I said, he has this pick-me energy. He's always trying to impress the Avengers. He's trying to be an Avenger. But his interactions with the other heroes in this movie is this peer-to-peer relationship. And this is this, hey, this hero can help me kind of solve this thing, but it's not like trying to impress them. It's just, it's the peer-to-peer relationship. It's the coworker relationship and dynamic that you see them all the time when you read these books, and like you watch the old cartoon. Like, he has this coworker relationship with the other heroes, and I'll get into it a little bit more, but then they have such a, I guess, profound experience from meeting him and experiencing and being in his orbit that they grow and become better people. And you get to see that in that final scene with Frank, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. So if you're a Frank Castle fan and you don't like that, sorry. I like a character with a little bit of layers, a three-dimensional character, not just a one-dimensional guy who and shoots people. But if that's what you like about Frank, then good for you. Like, you get that in his films. He does that. But don't get mad at me for liking dimension to my characters and layers. Bruce Banner, great for what they needed him to do in the film. Thought the stuff was interesting. It was really cool to see Hulk. But my one big issue I have, I guess not big issue with the film, because it doesn't really matter with me, with Peter's journey. That's why I was there to watch the movie. But in the grander scheme of the MCU, I struggle with how they deal with the Hulk. And I know I'm not alone in that. But it's just like, now what do you do with him after this? Like, and we say that like every time, like they just kind of like, how do I say this? Like, they're just kind of like treating him like I don't know. You know how they need to book him? They need to book him like the 80s WWF booked Andre the Giant. He is the ninth wonder of the world. He is the Hulk. He is arguably one of your top 3 most popular characters that you ever had, and he is an attraction. And he needs to be able to do something really cool when he shows up in your movie. I don't think he needs to do a ton, But I just think that when you're done with him, then you need to leave him in a spot to where when he comes back, like it's something, means something, you know? Like we need, like I love that comparison a little bit. Yeah, he is the MCU's Andre the Giant, and we need to treat the Hulk like he is the MCU's Andre the Giant. Okay, you know, like I would love to see him come back in Doomsday. Doom, I'm coming for you, Doom. Ah, there's my Andre the Giant. You can clip that if you'd like. We got to clip that for later. Anyway, but they gotta, I feel like they gotta figure something out with Hulk, and I don't have an answer for it. I don't know what it is. I thought he served his purpose really well in this film, and I'll get into that more here in a second. But I thought he served his purpose really well for what he needed to do in the film. I thought the fight scene with Pete was really, or with Spider-Man was really, really cool, and the way they shot it in the hallway scene stuff was really, really sick. And it was cool to see Savage Hulk back. So hopefully there's enough from this that they can, like, there's something we can do now with Hulk that's interesting. And I know it sucks with the rights issues and not being able to do a solo Hulk film probably hinders and has always hindered kind of what they're able to do with him. But I hope they figure it out, because I love the Hulk, and like he's down there, you can't really see him, but there's so many cool things that they could do with the Hulk, and they kind of already, you know, pooped the bed, I guess, if you will, by doing Planet Hulk. But I don't know. There's a lot more you can do, and there's a lot, I think, Immortal Hulk and going into the psyche of Bruce Banner maybe might be the move. Maybe Gene unlocked a bunch of stuff in there, and we get into that. Maybe get into more of the body horror stuff of Hulk, but we can't do a movie, so it doesn't matter. Let's see, where else? Sadie Sink. Then I'm going to tie everything back together. Okay, Sadie Sink. I thought this was one of her best performances that she's given to date. She is maturing and growing as an actress. She's come such a long way since we first saw her as good old Mad Max in that, third season, second season, third? I don't remember. One of the first 2 or 3 seasons of Stranger Things. Now, sometimes with young actors, you can hear the performing in the line. I hope that makes sense. Like they're making choices, okay? But you can also hear them reading something out loud in the way that they think they sound interesting. In a way that they think sounds interesting. There we go. And I did not hear that from her here. Now, no disrespect to her. She's killing it. She's doing great. But sometimes in Stranger Things, she came across that way. A lot of them kind of came across that way in there, and so I'm not holding that against her. But in The Whale, you can notice it a lot, because Brendan Fraser in his fat suit is acting his ass off in that movie. And then she comes in and is just kind of one note throughout the whole thing, and you can really kind of feel that we're just trying to get through it, and we're very intimidated, and this is a big deal, and nothing personal. I'm not making any judgment, but that didn't happen here. Like she felt like a real human being. She felt real, and when she performed her lines, it came off as real, and it came off as somebody who was actually going through the things that she was going through. That perpetuated her to say the things the way she said them, and I thought it was awesome. You know, there's an interesting thing that happens when you're surrounded by really good performers who are giving really great performances. It something clicks in you where you feel like you now have the freedom to take chances and make choices and actually go for things. And sometimes when you're surrounded by maybe actors who cannot do those things and may not be as far along as some others, you have to kind of come down to their level so that you don't stick out like a sore thumb. Because then sometimes you stick out like a sore thumb in a good way, but most of the time you stick out like a sore thumb where it just doesn't match the tone and of what everything else is going. And so you have to kind of dumb your stuff down a little bit. And I think she ran into that with Stranger Things sometimes, because there were definitely moments where she really felt like, oh, this girl's a dog. But then there were other times where she was in scenes with a lot of them, and it just kind of like, ugh. But also 7 or 8 person scenes are tricky to act in, and maintain your focus and be in it is really difficult. So I think that might have had a lot to do with it too. But how many of those Stranger Things actors are still working a lot? But anyway, I digress. Like I said, though, let's get back to that. When you're surrounded by great actors, you want to take chances. And I think Sadie Sink took advantage of that in this movie. She has given a ton to carry forward once she gets with the X-Mansion and starts working with Charles and starts developing a relationship with Scott. There is so much to mine now on top of, whatever she's going to get into up there, that I think you're going to look back on this and be like, ah, thank you for giving us so much stuff to like deal with and to grow from in those X movies. I think it's going to be great. Like she definitely laid the groundwork for if they go the Phoenix route. There is definitely some things in there that the Phoenix could feed on. Blah 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 blah. There's also, if Madeline Pryor shows up, some of the looks she gave in this film and enjoying the villainy, if you will, are definitely things that we will definitely see down the road if they go that route. And so, I think a lot of people are like, we never get enough time to get to know these characters, and we never get enough time to add all this depth, to use more buzzwords that they see on YouTube. And now you're getting a whole movie where, sure, would I have liked it to be a Spider-Man villain and for it to stay in Spider-Man's world? Yes, 100%. Was I a little disappointed when I found out that it's Jean Grey and that was going to be the villain? Sure. But did it hinder my experience watching the film? No, it did not. And I thought she did a phenomenal job. And it, like I said, laid a bunch of groundwork for her character going into the X-Men stuff, where she's going to be a mainstay and be a big deal here in the MCU for the next, 2 decades at least. So fine by me. I dug it because you know what? At the end of the day, this is a Peter Parker movie / really good Spider-Man movie. And every other character in this film, yes, had their own arcs, and there was some good, there was some not so good. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because they all served Peter and his story. Okay. I mean, MJ affects Peter, Ned affects Peter, Frank affects Peter, Jean affects Peter, Bruce affects Peter, and Peter in turn affects all of them. And Frank is a better person now than he was before because he met Peter Parker, and that's what's beautiful about the character of Spider-Man, is that that's why I love this character. Just by being himself, affects everyone around him for the most part, except for the women in his life, in a positive way. And they walk away from just being around him with a different perspective on the world and on life, and definitely on him than they had before. And that's Spider-Man. And you're going to hear me say that a lot here coming up in a second, but that is Spider-Man. And, but anyway, get back to what I said. All these characters, all of their arcs, all of their stuff served Peter's story. And this movie never forgot that. And sometimes in not just superhero films, but in films where there's a lot going on, you forget whose movie it is. And some other, it's hard to balance all of that. And this movie never forgot whose movie it was. And it was awesome. And it just really drove home that connection for me. And it drove home just how, I shouldn't say drove home, but it just added so much more enjoyment to the film experience for me. I thought it was awesome. And when you get a really great Peter Parker film, a really great Spider-Man film follows. So with that said, I'll get into these last few things here and then I'm done. Okay. Like I just said, that is Spider-Man. And I found myself saying that throughout this film a lot. And it's not like I hadn't really said that before in other iterations and things like that. But this just felt so good, man. It felt so good. And it wasn't during like gigantic superhero moments either. It was in the little stuff. It's the way he interacted with New Yorkers, dude. Like at the beginning when the guy driving the car says, "I got you, Spider-Man." And like it was there, helped him, whatever, jump onto the tank or whatever it was. His relationship with New York was amazing in this movie. That's Spider-Man. New York loves this guy and would do anything for this guy and would fight for this guy. And when Peter, spoiler alert, gets shot and is in the hospital, there's a bunch of people out there like waiting to make sure that he's okay. And one of the complaints a lot of people have is like, as have had with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, is his relationship to New York. And I thought this did such a great job of giving us that relationship, and that's Spider-Man. That's Spider-Man. I said earlier, he gets done fighting the Hulk. He goes back to Mary Jane to let her know, not just fight the Hulk, but he stops Jean Grey, goes back to tell Mary Jane, you're safe now. We're good. Maybe let's get back to like, swinging around. I don't know. And she hits him with the letter, heartbroken, day ruined. It just, for every high he has an even greater low. And that's why we love him, brother. That's Spider-Man. The suit, even the suit, man. Gone is the face shell. Okay, that was a dude in a face mask, in a suit that he looked like he made it at home. Granted, he made it with a really cool machine, but he's a genius and he can do those things, and it's a comic book movie, so I don't care. But again, making his own suit, doing that stuff, looking like it was homemade, that's Spider-Man. How he interacted with the other heroes in that peer-to-peer relationship, that banter back and forth with Frank Castle, all of that stuff, the science nerdy stuff with Bruce Banner, that's Spider-Man. And this movie did such a phenomenal job of giving us all those moments that made us feel like this was Spider-Man. And you can say what you want about how some of them was, how it was executed, and you can say what you want about damage control. Nothing personal. They were just there to be bad guys, dude. And I'm okay with that. Like, not every antagonist in a movie needs to be have some heartbreaking monologue as to why they veered off the path and why that they deserve this or that or the other thing, Like, I don't know. They just create pressure where their story needs pressure. And they are there to, create the pressure where there needs pressure. And clearly, whether you like it or not, they're clearly being positioned to be a thorn in the X-Men side come those movies here in the next few years. I'm sure they're going to get into business with some dirty dogs, maybe make some Sentinels, or maybe they, Metzger does give away at the end of this movie. Maybe he gets involved and starts doing some anti-mutant stuff, to get into some more spoilery story stuff. Peter Parker creates the universal, whatever you call it, thing, the tamperer or whatever the heck. I can't remember what it's called now. That's so embarrassing. But anyway, Peter Parker creates that in the most genuine, earnest, honest way because he's dealing with the spider power stuff and like where that goes with mutant kind, and if how pissed are they going to get at Peter Parker in the future, and what does that do for his relationship with mutants? And, he's got Jean Grey on his side. And that's a pretty good mutant to have on your side, but that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out in the future as well. But anyways, damage control. We'll see with them. But they created pressure that gave Peter these characters to push against at the end there. Or not Peter, but Jean to push against. And gave us, like the evil government, dude. Like, we all hate the government. I see you guys all writing it on social media every day. So, like, who cares about these guys? But I thought Metzger's performance was really good. I love him in what you call it on Apple Plus. Like, he's a great actor. And I thought he did a good job. And I bet you, like, again, like the same with Jean, like, this is a great, like, pushing off point for him. And, like, if you let this distract you, by the way, from a good Spider-Man movie and, like, you're upset that like they put this stuff in here that moves forward the MCU and stuff. We just go to the movies for a different reason. And like you view movies for a different reason than I do. And that's okay. But I thought they served their purpose. Everybody in this movie served Peter and all of that stuff very, very well. A little bit about the action. It's great. The Hulk fight, like I said earlier, great. All the practical stuff, when stuff isn't all CGI'd and all of that, it looks so cool. Like the swinging, even like I know this is an action, but the practical swinging and stuff was great. Just so good, so good. And then let me get to this because it got me to play this damn game again. And now I'm playing the first one, and I'm going to probably play all three by the time summer's over. But all of the moves that they used from the Spider-Man PlayStation games was so awesome to see because it just looked so good in the game, but it looked so good in live action. There was one where he's got like the guy on the ground and he's in the air and he's got the two webs going down and he just double kicks him. I just did that last night playing the game, and that was so good. And I thought they did such a great job with the action and how Pete moved, and all of his gadgets and things from the game were really, really great. I thought it was awesome. That had me just like, ooh, like just like a giggly little schoolgirl throughout the whole thing, because I was like, that Leo meme. Or the Christoph Waltz meme. Like, I was both of those at once, and it was great. So big shout outs to them for the action. I thought it was really cool. That last scene where he comes to grips with like being both Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and he does that web thing and the it's so sick. It's so sick. And now we have a proper spider sense in the MCU where like don't you mess with Pete now, bro. And for me, as the person who said, hey, I'm going to go on this journey till Pete's okay, dude, I feel rewarded. It was great, bro. But it was cool. It was awesome. Direction, phenomenal. Destin Daniel Cretton, please direct just 1,000 Spider-Man movies. Go ahead. Keep doing it. It just didn't feel cookie cutter. This felt like a genuine film. This didn't feel like it had to be a part of the Marvel universe. It was beautiful, and he deserves all the flowers. Go for it. What else? I think I'm gonna get to the end because I've been talking now for a while. So let's get to my ending. If I could give this movie a number, I mean, obviously it'd be like a 9.8. I'll give it a 9.7 just because of I don't know, like I'm not even that bothered by the Hulk stuff. So you know what? It gets a 9.8 for me because just so I can nitpick and be a nitpicky little douchebag, I'll give it a 9.8 because I would have rather had a Spider-Man villain instead of Jean Grey. There you go. There's otherwise it would have been a perfect score. But anyways, I digress. I don't think that I don't really want to give it a ranking, to be honest with you. Like I'm going to remember this movie for how it made me feel, because somewhere along the way I kind of had thought that I had aged out of Spider-Man, and that sucked. That have all these superheroes, right? The gods, the billionaires, the mutants, soldiers, aliens. I mean, you name it, dude. Peter Parker's always the guy that felt like he was like, it felt like it was me. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And then I got older, and Peter started feeling younger, and he became the little brother. And the kid I rooted for instead of the guy that I recognized. That's probably a better way to put it. And this movie gave me that connection back, and I will forever be grateful for that. And there's just so much more I could have gone into on that, but I want to respect everybody's time. Man, it was great, you know? Because like I think about throughout the movie, when Peter watched MJ with somebody else, been there. You know, when he wanted to get away from everybody and swing through New York alone in the rain. Been there, dude. You know, when he put all that shit somewhere deep inside of him and put the mask on and was still kind to people. Been there, dude, and try and be there all the time. Try and do that every day. You know, because life doesn't stop at kicking the crap out of Peter Parker just because he's Spider-Man. Being Spider-Man doesn't make the loneliness go away. It doesn't bring Aunt May back. It doesn't magically give him the life that he wanted and give him back his friends. You know, the mask doesn't fix Peter Parker. Peter Parker is what gives the mask meaning. And that's what this movie understood, you know, and that's what this movie did a really great job of, and what I really appreciated about it. Let me see what else I got here. I wrote this down and I thought I really liked it. He's hurt. He's lonely. He doesn't always know what the hell he's doing, but he gets up and does it anyway. He keeps pushing forward. And somehow, after everything that's happened to him, he hasn't allowed the world to take the kindness away from him. And I think that's shown beautifully in the climax of his deal in We're Running with Jean, where he brings her in and lets her sit in on that memory with Aunt May, which is probably my second favorite scene in this movie. Spider-Man using his trauma to help someone who he knows is a better person than what they've been portraying throughout the film, using his trauma to help them overcome their trauma. So beautiful, man. And that is Spider-Man. And I think it's such a beautiful thing and so well done. But yeah, just to top it off, man. Sorry, because that got me really emotional. And then I lost my train of thought. Shout outs to Marissa Tomei in that scene. It was one of the most beautiful things ever. But how you can hate that, I don't understand. But anyways, thank you to those guys who made the movie, because it just felt like an old friend had come back for a while. And that was awesome. And I think that's why we go to the movies, right? To feel something. So, let me catch myself, compose myself. Like I said, we go to the movies to feel something, and this movie made me feel something awesome. And I hope it did for you too. Thanks for listening to my little almost hour-long rant. Check me later today on Kingdom of Nerds over at his channel. We're going to talk D23. Check back here again here in the next week or so, finishing up shooting a film. So I'll start getting some content out once I'm done with that. But I had to get this out and talk about my favorite superhero. So anyways, have a wonderful Monday. Have a wonderful week. And subscribe, leave a comment, and hit the subscribe button. That's that little bell notification. No, wait, not the subscribe button. Hit the little bell notification so that you're notified anytime that I put something out on here. Okay? Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. You're all true believers to me, and I truly believe in all of you. If you made it this far and you got that gem, have a great day. All right. Peace.